Good morning, afternoon, or evening to those of you listening. Welcome to the third Summer Steam Game Festival developer live stream for Breakpoint, our retro-inspired throwback to classic twin-stick arcade games. My name is Nick, one half of the studio developing the game, and with me is Ed, the other half of the studio. Joining us today is Victor Cortes, visual effects artist at FXVille. I said that right this time.
Yep.
All-around good guy. How are you, Victor?
I am doing pretty well. It is a hot day. I am kind of roasting in my room.
Sorry I made you turn off the fan earlier to get better mic quality.
No.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's half the problem. The other problem is, like, I've been making a point to, like, dress nice, and today I'm wearing, like, my all black.
Yeah. I
gotta get that apocalypse look going.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I've made a habit of like closing the blinds to make sure that the sun doesn't just, you know, like shine into the house and or the apartment anyway, and then start like making it super hot inside, because that will happen more often than you'd like here in California. So yeah, it's just even so, I'm like super. All these recent days, like the past few weeks, it's been pretty hot. So
yeah,
it just doesn't help.
I'm weak to this. I'm not used to this.
Negative heat resistance.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I got to build up those stats numbers, man.
I mean, you can always get warmer, but you
can't get colder.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's true. So, Victor, walk me through a little bit of your history in game development, if you could.
So mostly I've always had an interest in game design growing up, but like specifically more in like the arts aspect.
Okay.
And like for me, it was went to college, RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
So you didn't take any classes in? So did you take all the art classes you could when you were in like elementary school, middle school, high school, growing up? Take any game-related classes, or did they have any?
They had like computer classes.
Okay.
And so I learned like computer things. It's funny because I told my parents like I want to make games, and they understood that as like programming, and I was like maybe programming.
Sure.
No,
yeah, because you're kind of too young to know what that means. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I guess you found out pretty quickly it wasn't programming. It was probably going to be something else.
Yeah, but like I still did pretty decently in like most of my computer classes until
Gotcha. Okay. Oh wait, so I guess go ahead, detail your college career then.
For college, like I definitely went to the game program, but like the game program also had like 6 specialties.
Oh,
like
wow.
Programming, art, I think there's audio, writing, Rensselaer. It's in upstate New York.
Okay.
They also had like a business specialty, which was pretty funny. But like, so I learned to be like a generalist at art. But it wasn't until like my senior year that I like found out like effects were a thing, and like it made sense that effects were a thing. But I didn't take my first effects class until my senior year.
Oh, okay.
And that was great. It was really funny because like I picked up everything really quickly. To the point there was like I'd figure out the day's lesson, I'd get it done, and then I'd just goof off on whatever I wanted.
So that's how you knew it was your calling.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was funny because at the final project.
I'm tired today. I'm sorry.
Just let that dark collide into you from behind. Sorry.
But like my final project for that class was just a compilation of everything I had done, like while I was goofing off. I didn't tell my teacher until like after he gave me an A. I was like, yeah, that's just the stuff I did. But he was really chill. He was a super chill guy. After that, I graduated, and then I went into photography because it was hard to get a job.
Like straight into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was doing photography for about like 2 years or so, and I eventually realized like I cannot do this. Or I was like I could, but I hate it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to ask like why, but it sounds like you just didn't. It wasn't very interesting or good for you.
It didn't excite me, and also like the company that I had worked for I didn't mesh well with them.
Okay.
So I was like, I needed a big change, and that big change happened to be to go to Seattle.
Okay. Why Seattle?
I had a relative at the time there, and they had invited me to come visit them or like to try staying with them. I was like,
Yeah.
but like I need to find a job first and like do these things in order. And eventually I was like, nope, we're gonna do this in the wrong order.
We're just gonna, yeah.
It's gonna
We're just gonna go
figure
and
things
go
out.
First. Yeah. There's something to be said about that kind of bravery. It's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was cool, terrifying. I remember like halfway through my 6-hour flight, I forget what movie was playing, but like it had gotten to me, and I just started bawling the rest of the
Oh, no. Like you were moving away from home, you were going somewhere new.
Yeah.
Didn't have any concrete plans for anything. You're just gonna tackle things head first.
We're just gonna figure it out as we go. And then I moved here, and like the very next week, I went to like my first Seattle Indie social. They had the East Side social back then. Which was, like, in this bar in Bellevue, and I met like I met a lot of the people I know today. But it wasn't until like my first game jam later that month that I met like some of my core circle.
Gotcha.
Like our famous Ag Good Enough Andrew.
Hey, he was on yesterday.
Yeah.
I know. I was listening in. It was really cool. He has the most iconic laugh.
Yeah, a lot of idiosyncrasy to that one. Very identifiable.
I remember like we would hang out a lot to the point where I started saying hell yeah in the same way he does.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. But like from then I mostly spent a lot of my time like learning to like do I kept swapping between like pixel art and like VFX. And like I tried to like do the two of them at the same time, but eventually I sat down and like focused on like VFX specifically.
Yeah, so at this time were you basically already focused on like I want to do VFX as a career, or was it still sort of up in the air?
It was I knew I really liked VFX, but it was still up in the air. Like I was like, I want to do art.
Gotcha.
And I want to do VFX, but I'm also willing to do other things.
Yeah.
But like
just still a little bit of exploring.
Yeah, a little bit of exploring. But like I was really lucky to meet like so many amazing people. Because like I would go to the indie support group, and there's a lot of people that I like talk to often these days, but also like taught me a lot that I know. Like a lot of my knowledge about shaders and effects is due to like Adelaide Jenkins, who's a super awesome badass. If you ever get to play Band Brigade,
yeah, whatever that. I know. Yeah, this isn't a paid show. This is a deliberate, choiceful one. This one's for free.
That one's for free. But, yeah, like, and it wasn't until actually like my first BlizzCon that like I actually like sat down and I was like, I need to do this. By next year, I'm gonna have like a demo reel to show.
You set a goal for yourself.
Yeah, because I met like some of the artists there, and they were like, yeah, if this is what you want to do, you gotta get started. I was like, and it just like clicked. I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and
take it seriously. Yeah. So what kind of steps did you take after that then, to when you started getting serious, I guess, about VFX?
I had checked out the forum in Real-Time VFX because they have like a lot of cool people there. Like they're always working on really neat stuff. But they're also like a very helpful community.
Oh yeah, they do those challenges you were taking part of.
Yeah,
too.
I started doing challenges after my first BlizzCon. And I think the very first one was like Tornado.
Oh yeah, yep. Still the one that I remember seeing the first. I think it was the first day. The first day at the not the social, but the support group. Yeah. So for those not in the know, the support group is just essentially it sounds like
like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, I know.
We're not alcoholics.
It's not that. It's any support group is just it's like a co-working space essentially that happened every Saturday. At the AIE, or the Armory at the Seattle Center, and it was just basically a bunch of people gathering together to share and show off what they were working on in the indie sphere, and then to get help or ask questions, or really just kind of like hang out in a developer atmosphere. And so yeah, a lot of us met at the indie support group under the Seattle Indies banner.
Still going online in case anybody's interested.
It is, yeah. It is in fact still going online. If you go to the Seattle Indies Discord, you're able to still participate in online discussions.
It's been at a few different places. Like now it's at AIE. Like when I first went there.
That's true.
Like, this is a sketchy warehouse
right next to a strip club.
Right next to a strip club. I had a friend take me there, Kurt took me there, and like we passed by a warehouse and he was like, I swear I'm not murdering you. I was like, okay.
Yeah. That you say so is suspect.
It's definitely in a rough part of Seattle. It's actually, now that I think about it,
it's like right next to the stadium.
It is, yeah, that's why I say it's like not even that rough, it just looks run down.
Yeah, it looks run. It's like right next to the stadium, like a few blocks away is this super industrialized district where like it's easy to get into an alleyway that looks like rough, and then you emerge and you're like, oh, there's civilization again, but where did I just emerge from?
Right.
Yeah.
It's super weird. But yeah, I remember seeing the tornado that you were working on at the time as part of the challenge, and obviously subsequently all of the other effects that you were working on.
Tornadoes just seem to haunt me. Because like
just following me.
As talking about your career these days. So after your sort of indie stuff that you were getting involved in, because I know now you work at FXVille. So how was between there and getting into FXVille?
It was like I have been working on these effects, but I was also like applying to places, but at the same time like my portfolio actually didn't exist yet. It's just like I had all of these projects that I was working on, but I didn't actually like make a full-on website yet.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And like I think it was like before GDC last year happened, I was like, all right, I need to actually like make a website and like hunker down, get all these things done, like some footage of some kind. And I had a lot of help from some other friends of mine who were much better at like video editing than I was, and like the right camera shot and whatnot.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Compositing a shot, setting a stage.
Much, yeah. And like GDC was awesome. I was able to go there because a friend recommended me.
Oh, nice.
And so I was able to go there as CA, a conference associate. Yeah, and like that was super awesome. I feel like I'm in my element, helping people out like on such a like large event.
Big event, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the precursor was like helping at PAX. Like I helped a friend's booth for like 2 days, and that was really cool.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I will warn people now that I go on tangents a lot.
No worries. We got a full hour of just shooting the breeze and talking it out, so I wouldn't.
This story goes here, and this story goes here. And sometimes the train we go on will take a crazy 90-degree turn.
We're being pretty casual about this. It's just three friends chatting over Breakpoint, so.
Oh yeah.
We're just hanging out, really. Yeah.
But it was there that I was able to meet like a lot more VFX people. And it was really cool because like in Seattle Indies, like I was the only FX artist that I ever like really knew of. I was like, oh yeah, he's 3D guy. I'm like, that's Victor. He does VFX.
Yeah.
And how would you describe what the makeup of the Seattle Indie support group was like in terms of expertise and specialty? Like,
it generally leans more towards like programmers and like the developers.
Okay,
like,
yeah, that had been my
there have been like times where like it spikes, where they're like artist spikes, and like I'm an artist, and like you see all the programmers like, you're like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
well, then also at the game, a lot of the game jams, you'll notice that a lot of the musicians and composers kind of come out, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
There are a lot in Seattle, and so during one of the game jams Ed and I had participated in, it was just so many that they had created their own channel just to like support people creating their own projects. They were like, let's just all of the musicians just band together, and if you need help, just ping that Discord channel, and we'll see whoever's available to help. Like, none of the other expertise or specialties actually had a channel like that. Most of them had just joined a team, but they were a big enough group to actually do that. So I just thought it was interesting because I had not, up until that point, met that many musicians. And then just suddenly an influx of a bunch of musicians all together, all at once. Just were like, I can do games. I like games. Yeah, I know.
The thing is, like, most of their setups aren't mobile. So, like,
that's one of,
like, they have their studios at home.
And if they're gonna go somewhere, they'd better set up for 2 days to do a jam.
Right. Yeah.
Not just like 6 hours to
It's like, even with the
that's
support group, you don't see them as often because they have like all these things they need to bring.
And even then, if they do actually arrive and do some work, it's usually like menial stuff. It's stuff where they're just like tweaking or editing. They can't create any new content because it would require their studio setup, essentially.
It's like the busy work that you need to do. But like isn't like the core of your interest. But it has to be done.
That has to be done, right? Exactly.
The fine tune,
all of that stuff that still has to be done, but it's just like, I guess I don't need any equipment for this. But also, I'm just gonna put my headphones on and not listen to anybody here and not be social at all, which kind of sucks because it's kind of, for a lot of the people working at that co-working space, it was essentially kind of like a developer's social event. Like, it was there to not just work on your stuff, but to also like ask questions and to socialize about like work patterns and habits, and talk about like your problems that you've been having, or like troubleshoot some stuff. And that's like the only time you can really talk about developer oriented topics. And that's kind of hard when you have headphones on and you're working on stuff that, obviously is audio centric, so you're kind of like closing yourself off to a bunch of other people. So I can kind of sympathize with audio folks that it's a little difficult to. I guess that's why I would understand, looking back, why I had not met so many audio folks at the support group anyway.
But they've all definitely met each other.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. Yeah,
I get that impression too. Yeah, they all know each other.
It's like we haven't met, but like we talk all the time. Like, well, damn, all right.
Yeah. So I guess you were putting together your portfolio then, and then. I was submitted it to places, I suppose.
I was submitted to places, and like most of the, like, there was often like no response. There was like one response where, because I had a friend recommend me, and they're like, they liked your stuff, but they picked this other person because they're like already like have this breadth of work to show. Like they already have like games under their belt.
They have some experience. Yeah.
And I was like. And the thing I took out of there was like, they liked my stuff. Yeah. Like, it didn't even feel like a rejection.
That is such an optimistic way of looking at it. It's important.
I was like, yeah, I'm confident.
Yeah, that's important. It's an important attitude to take, honestly. I think there's a lot of people would focus negatively on the sense of rejection you get from that, or just feel like, oh, well then how come, why did I even submit this at all? Like, I didn't even have a chance. It's like, well, no, I mean, like, there was a part of there that you just mentioned that was actually important. They liked your stuff, and that's good to be able to mention.
You usually don't hear that. Like, usually just like it goes into the void and it doesn't come back out.
Yeah.
But like one of the most important things about
welcome to submitting for jobs in general.
Right? Like
where no one feels obligated to respond back to you, and it's like, oh, please, I just want to hear something, even a rejection. I need to know.
That's honestly why that optimism is so important. It's not even just like taking the good stuff out. Like, it's not just a philosophy on life. It really is just, you need to be optimistic, or else you're just going to get so discouraged.
Exactly. You can't fall into a trap of negativity.
Funny enough, when I was a photographer, like, I was also doing stuff that I had no business doing, which included like setting up hiring interviews. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Interesting.
It was like they had the owners had us wearing many hats.
Okay, gotcha.
And so like I was originally just a photographer, but I was also doing like office work, and then eventually it was like setting up these interviews, and at one point I actually interviewed someone like, I don't have.
What am I doing here? Yeah.
What is this? I didn't ask for this.
Yeah. You look back at your career as a photographer, and you're like, I'm moving a little bit away from what I kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
Continually.
But GDC, I met one of the people at FXVille, and like, we were at like this VFX talk, and they were like, I'm at FXVille, and
had you heard of FXVille before then?
I was like looking at like effects anywhere that had like effects jobs, and I found FXVille specifically like when I moved to Seattle, and I was like, this is the dream.
This is it.
Yeah, this is the I want to go there.
Yeah.
And so I ran into one of the people there who had happened to go to GDC, and I was like, hey, when we go back to Seattle, can we get lunch sometime?
Yeah, definitely.
And he was like, yeah, sure, okay. And so like once like a week, once every 2 weeks, like we would just have dinner at the Armory actually, and we just like talk effects and like show him my stuff, and just like chill and hang out, and it was really cool. Like he eventually became like a mentor essentially.
Yeah,
and like a very
helped you along your career path.
Definitely a very important person to this story. But yeah, like at some point, like after a few months of just like hanging out and like me showing my work and like just giving feedback and getting feedback, he was like, hey, we're actually looking for a person. You might want to like apply if you can. And I was like, yeah, sure, like hell yeah, I'll totally be down for that. And I realized, I was like, wait, shit, I still don't have a demo reel. So like that was like the crash course weekend of like getting everything set up.
Oh. Well, sometimes a little bit of pressure puts you into the right mindset to get everything done.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if this was one of those times, but sometimes that is true.
That's the saying, pressure makes diamonds or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice, I've never heard that. That's kind of clever. That's clever.
Oh god.
So yeah.
All the stress. Like, eventually I got the job, and I remember I got the email like at 7, so like I was expecting it like before 7, like around 5 or so. So I was at the gym. And I got the email, and I like was working out, and then I cried. I just cried on the spot.
It was your dream coming true.
And I like called like 2 of my friends, and like I was just like laughing and sobbing. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm actually better. I just better than I'm coming across as right now."
And like,
it's cool.
It was if like someone was outside to witness this, it would have been the most ridiculous scene, like out of an anime, because like it was raining, and I was laughing in the rain.
Oh, that is hilarious. It's all sorts of dramatic. You can't write this stuff, it's real life.
I know, right? Sitcoms are real,
so then that brings you to essentially more or less to today, where you're working at FXVille then.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome. Like I'm surrounded by so many like amazing people, and they all like have their like super cool niches and like things that they do really well. Like it's just like it kind of feels like having the indie support group like as a company, because like everyone's working on their individual contracts and whatnot. But like
I guess and not everybody's working on the same
together. Yeah.
Right. And you still have that atmosphere where you're sharing each other's work, and you're not entirely aware of what everyone else is doing because you're not on the same projects.
Yeah. So there's still like that like moment of like surprise and joy. I'm like, oh shit, he worked on that. That's amazing.
That's okay. It's it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
I feel like beforehand I was like, I should make a point to not do that. Like, I just got excited.
I know. It's totally fine. We don't have any editing for this afterwards, but it's essentially after dark in most places, so it's like it's totally cool. So yeah, broadly speaking, how would you, now that you're working at FXVille and doing contracts and stuff like that for visual effects for other studios and companies, broadly speaking, how would you describe what is a common day for a person working on visual effects in the games industry for you?
For the most part, like I start my day, have like a morning stand-up, talk about what I'm gonna get done for the day with my lead, and then I like start doing that. So like usually it's like open the software, like whichever engine like a person's using, whether that's like Unreal or like Unity or like proprietary.
Right. Oh, by the way, if anything's NDA, just feel free not to.
Oh,
I totally understand that. Games
my mind
industry
has already
is so
like
full.
that through. It's just filters and filters.
Yeah. Talking about games in like back end parts of games in development is always kind of like a difficult subject, because there's NDAs and contracts and forms you have to sign for stuff that is non-disclosed information that you're not supposed to disclose to other people. It's just all sorts of so feel free to just like decline answering any of these questions and or offer any comments from the more broad general sense.
I can be broad about it. Like I can't like say that I worked on Mortal Kombat. Like I can say that.
Nice. Yeah, cool. So the most recent Mortal Kombat, you worked on effects for that?
Yeah, like Mortal Kombat Aftermath. Like we worked on Spawn, we worked on RoboCop, and like some of the like important story parts. Talking about tornadoes, there's this giant tornado scene in Aftermath, and like that was like months. And just like tornadoes, they just haunt me.
You begin and end with tornadoes. That is Victor's continual.
Funny enough, my like ramp up time at FXVille to learn like UE4. They were like, "Hey, can you recreate your tornado in UE4?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
So it's just tornadoes are just my specialty, and I should accept that right now.
Yeah, because you were working with Unity prior, and so UE4 was something that you were learning for FXVille, right?
Yeah, like I've always, and it wasn't like I like chose to start with Unity. It was mostly like everyone I knew used Unity.
Yeah, it just happened to be right.
Unity.
Yeah. So you're just a sheep. You just follow the herd. Just kidding. I know that sounds well, that's the thing. That's the reason why you were able to go to UE4 and manage to actually, adapt to it and change your work process and your habits. And obviously, you've managed to do that successfully. So it's not you're not stuck to any one process. Definitely managing to make it work.
Yeah, I'm making it work. I'm doing the best I can.
It's cool. Do you feel like as a person who's made it, do you feel like you've made it, or do you still get imposter syndrome from time to time?
I still get imposter syndrome from time to time. Like, I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, it does happen, but like for the most part, like I can, as it goes on, like I can go back and point to things like, look at that, I worked on that.
That's like actually a specific thing you can point to in time that
like
you worked on.
If you can like personify your brain and be like, look at this thing I worked on. And just, like, it's like, how dare you feel imposter? Yeah,
I think that's actually an important thing for a lot of people looking to get into games in general. And that's actually one of the, just going off of something I said yesterday, that's actually one of the reasons why I think it's important to finish, or at least do some work that you can point to, because you start developing a body of work that you can actually show as evidence of your participation in making games.
Not just to other people, but to yourself.
To yourself. It's not, I mean, like for Andrew, it was, participating in those game jams. And so he had he was essentially describing like, well, it was sort of a promise to himself to make a bunch of stuff, but in the process, essentially, you're making a bunch of things to kind of prove to yourself you can do this. Me personally, that's actually one of the reasons why I'm such a big proponent of game jams, and I like however they're made, but just in general, just doing a game jam and like following through with it doesn't really give you time to think about like to have an opinion and to be precious about your work. Basically, it's sort of just like if you're really going to commit to doing this, especially the short-term time frame ones, if you're just going to commit to doing them, you just have to do them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You just have to like
buckle down.
You said you're gonna do this.
It.
Yeah, you just gotta buckle down and do it. There's no having an opinion like, well, this sucks and this art. Well, I just gotta redo it. It's like, no,
Nope.
you don't have time. Like if you're gonna finish this, which you said you were gonna, right? Like then you're gonna just leave certain parts, and then you'll realize later it's like it's okay. It was okay to focus on something else. What was that?
Don't worry about it. You didn't see that.
Just threw your weapon away in the
I thought you
middle of
weren't
nowhere. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's important to acknowledge how much work you have to do. Think about it, but don't think too hard, and then just start doing. That's what I like about game jams. It's just it's a time for you to just start doing. And again, like I said, to not be too precious about your work, to actually start putting stuff out, and then to also not only learn what you prioritize, but then to also take all of those lessons and actually prioritize the things that do actually matter, that will matter to finishing the game. Because if you say, for example, if you've gone through a few game jams already and you found like, oh, I just don't finish this because I focus too hard on like, oh, I just get sucked into making portraits so much and I don't end up finishing, the UI or the menus or something like that. And you might think, well, this time, as much as I like portraits, I've done a lot of them already. Let's make sure that I actually get the UI done, and actually maybe you'll find out it's not so bad. I mean, or maybe you'll find out it sucks, but you already have a process. Maybe this time you'll be like, okay, this just makes it easier. For the next time, I already know I don't like doing this, but at least now I have a process for getting through this. So it's about developing good habits in your work process. And obviously, when you're developing things for a studio, you don't always have to, develop habits for doing certain work structures that you don't really care about. But, if nothing else, indie game development gives you an appreciation for the kind of work that goes into making stuff that you yourself aren't a specialist in. Like,
for sure.
That's something that definitely comes across when you're making stuff that you're not very good at, and you see other people be good at those aspects in game jams. You see like, oh, this person's actually a really good artist. They're so much better than I am at this stuff. This is why they do what they do and how they're so successful. That's cool. It's good to keep tabs of that. I might not focus on that. I may be a programmer, but it'd be cool to take note of the kind of things that they do, and then also just appreciate how hard it is for like an artist to implement something. Or say the other way around, when you're an artist and you're working on a team, you might be asking for something that you might not realize would take a person a long time to do, and then you're like, oh well, having had to do it myself, I concede that this is actually very difficult to do, so I will be kind to when a person might be like, oh, that's actually kind of hard, give me some time to finish this for you.
Yeah, I know though, I still fall into that trap. It was like kind of like hard to it's hard to let go of your baby.
Yeah, especially if you have precious ideas of what you're like, oh, it's got to be this way. This looks better this way. If we could just do this, it'd be cool if we could do that.
Like it's something I still try to make sure to do. One of my coworkers has like. It sounds awful to say, just like kill your babies, and it's like,
Right.
I'm like, I
Out of
understand the
context
point.
is awful, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like you need to be able to just understand this is not like a representation, it's not personal. It's just like you gotta get the job done.
Yeah.
And
Seeing your product as a product, but then also still holding it dear to you.
Yeah, for sure. Because it is guaranteed to change many times.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's perfect this time, except for next week, in which case they saw this minor thing and now it needs to change.
Yeah, because you're working in a team with a bunch of other artists too, so you kind of have to accede to some of their visions as well. It's not just your call to make.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we execute the visions.
Yeah, because you're working for a client, I guess.
Yeah,
the difference there.
They have things that they need. They have certain things that they want visually for you guys. Yeah. So, what would you describe are your touchstones of games that inspire you from a visual effects standpoint?
All right.
Do you have a list? Do you have things in mind?
Well, there's it's like flashes of stuff that I can point to, and like it's funny because the thing I'm going to start out with is like every Shiva summon in Final Fantasy. All of them.
So why those specifically? Why Shiva?
I have a very large fondness for ice effects, and I still don't know where it comes from, but I know it exists.
It's just your elemental affinity.
I know, right? But I remember like I think it was like Final Fantasy IX, which was like the first Final Fantasy I beat. Therefore, it's my favorite now. Like
nice.
That's the rule, right?
It's also a good. It's also a good Final Fantasy.
It's also a good
general. So one of my favorites.
Remake it someday, yeah, please.
Yes, please.
I remember. I think I summoned like Shiva for the first time, and like I was like, I had my like. It was really cool. Like I can't probably put to words like how like awesome it was, but it was like I would like think about that moment, and like you know how like people like get really into like games and like really into like their TV shows and they like insert a character or like insert themselves into it. I would like insert spells. I'm like, and this is the spell I would use, and it looks like and it does this
That's interesting.
thing. And that was
very apt for a person who does visual effects, actually.
That was little Victor. Like the game that I would do this to most to was actually Onimusha, which is really funny.
Oh, interesting.
Because like they had like it was really cool and stylish. Like you had like 3 weapons and they all had their own elements, and they all had like this super cool finisher move that was very distinct from each other. Like there was the lightning sword, and then there was the fire sword that like had this large flame come out of it, and then there was like this dual blade pole that like made a tornado, and like I can like picture those very clearly. And I remember like walking to school, like in elementary school, and being like, and this is my weapon, and it does this, and it looks super cool, and it's gonna be great.
That's funny.
I can recall just like doodling these things too. Like that's how much.
Well, of course, that's so very kid-like of every kid is like I'm either this character or this is my OC and I have wings and I do this lightning ability and it's like
my OCs were spells.
Yeah, exactly.
So you didn't actually like picture who you were, just like I'm using these cool things.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who I am as long as I get to do the cool things.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I get these spells and abilities.
I look back and then like the evidence was always there because like I'd play like all the Pokemon games, right? But the thing that I was excited about was like besides the evolutions was like unlocking new attacks and like what does this attack look like? And that looks super cool. Hydro Pump, oh my god.
Yeah.
Flame Blast? What?
Yeah, that's different than Flamethrower and different than oh man, yeah, you're right. I tried that one was the one that had the Japanese symbol for fire actually now that yeah.
I always love Surf. Surf just looks cool all the time.
So I guess you had only a few games that kind of like took you through your path into visual effects then, it sounds like, or were there other? Because I know that in the past we've talked a little bit about like League of Legends or like top-down games that had kind of an impact on the way that you thought about effects visually. Was that something that you thought about when you were making your portfolio? Did you think about how people would see it, what kind of perspective would it be in, what kind of engine it would be put into?
I didn't actually think it that far ahead. I was just like, I want to make cool things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of people like I make these things for this like great grand reason or like this reason that's really important, and I'm just like I want to make things that look cool.
Just want to make cool looking things.
And then I was like, I want to make badass looking things. I'm like that's beyond cool, but like it's still like not like the most profound thing. I'm just like I want to make cool things because it's cool.
Right.
I think.
So, what is the hallmark of a cool looking thing? How would you describe what is the hallmark of a good visual effect, Victor, as a person who's in the industry? What would you say?
I mean, the ones I always point to are like Anything in Heroes of the Storm.
Huh.
Because that was one I really enjoyed and really liked the effects of.
Gotcha.
But like the Final Fantasy 12, Fran, they all have like their weird limit breaks and whatever. But Fran's had the ice one, which was super cool. And like it just looks really cool, but the timing of it all, like the combination of like the sound, the visuals, and just like the pacing of it was really awesome.
Gotcha.
And like how it all just kind of like culminates in like Fran snapping her finger and like this giant like ice structure just like shatters. I'm like, yes.
Gotcha. So like the visual effect sort of tells the story then.
Yeah. And like I think with like my first effects, like they didn't really tell stories, they just existed. Like the tornado didn't have to start, it just was there. But the one I made to get used to Unreal, that one had more of a story. And it looks a lot cooler. I'm not sure, I think I can show that off because it's not for anything. At some point, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to like post it in the chat or something. You've got an image.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's like an important sense of timing, important sense of shape, like sense of timing, sense of shape, and sense of color were like the three most important things that were like was always told to me. Because like I remember, like even though I didn't have a portfolio specifically, when I went to like BlizzCon, I had work to show, and I like showed it off to one of the artists there, and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool. You have like you have the like the shape, the color, and timing. Like they're pretty good, but like they're still like they're like at 80%, and you need to be at like that last 20% takes an eternity to polish, right?"
Gotcha. Yeah. No, for sure. Games are they just constantly follow that formula for whatever reason.
Yeah. And like as you get to the end, it's like eventually you fall into the trap of like you're just really changing one number from like 0.9 to like
right, yeah.
And
yeah.
like does,
like, oh wait,
does 0.9
actually
work? Wait, what about 0.908?
Yeah.
Well, because in visual effects, you're not in control of literally everything that's happening in the scene in the same way that, say, a cel-shaded 2D animator is. You're doing like you're using some tech, like systems and particles, to create something for you. So sometimes you'll have to, tweak some numbers and things like that because you don't have specific control over every particle. So I can imagine there's a lot of tweaking involved.
Yeah, I mean, like you make it do what you want, essentially. It's like with programming, is like it does exactly what you tell it to. Right. And like a lot of that is also adding variance. But then you have to add the right amount of variance so that it looks cool and isn't like stagnant. So it's like, I make you chaos because you must be chaos.
Yeah, you still want
to control, like contain.
Right. There still has to be some organic traits to them. A lot of things that visual effects artists will create, from my observation, are still things that adhere to reality in some way or function. So it's still got to look fairly organic and smooth, because you don't really want things to look robotic. And if you do have complete control over everything, you'll end up creating a lot of things that just look very stagnant or stiff.
Enough, like it feels like a lot of those things can be fixed by just like changing your, like if you have a curve on something, you just change the curve ever so slightly. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, it's fixed. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to animation too. I mean, when you're doing an animation in 3D or 2D, you're gonna want to pay attention to your curves. And in animation sense, those are literally your curves. Either your curves in your actual art you're drawing, or your curves in your animation curves, like the animation graph. So if you go into the dope sheet or you go into the animation curves, you're gonna be changing those nodes and then changing the tangents or something like that to smooth in, smooth out, ease in, ease out. And a lot of those things are going to be like to create smooth transitions in and out of visual effects or in rigs or animations. So you do a lot of tweaking in visual art, even if even as art is a very creative industry that is like a very touchy-feely, there's in games it's very tech oriented. You have to be very aware of the fact
there is a science to it. Yeah,
there's a science. You have to be aware of messing around with tools and how to mess around with tools to make the effect that you want. Was that ever a struggle for you, having to deal with the fact that you were going to have to deal with tools, or did you find that to be perfectly fine for you to have to adapt to because you were used to using like computers and tech to do what you wanted to do anyways?
There's usually like that initial struggle, which is usually just you're trying to translate things over. Because like, all right, how do I make a particle? I make a particle like this in Unity. How do I make it in a different program? How do I move it in this program?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, moving between different programs can be kind of
it's like
a hassle.
It's kind of like, well, I don't know this personally, but like, if you understand like a 3D program, you can generally quickly understand other ones. Like I know Maya relatively decently, but like I don't know 3D Max and I don't know Blender, but like if I get some time into it and like learn,
you can translate some
their
of those
language,
skills.
then I can translate in like
Right, yeah. So just give it some time, some focus, some attention. You should be able to apply those.
It's like one of the most important traits would be like, you gotta be adaptable.
It's true, yeah. Would you say the same thing, Ed, in programming?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's all sorts of similarities between different programs, but I think adaptability is just by far the most, the best trait you can have. Honestly, like, I think it goes for all tech jobs, and, you know, creative jobs notwithstanding, or like art, you know, art being a creative job notwithstanding, it still kind of is also a tech job.
Yeah.
It's just, since it moves so quickly.
And we're talking about the games industry too, so like it's so tech involved that it's inevitable you're going to run into software or programs you're not familiar with. So there's going to be times where you're dealing with programs or pipelines or workflows you're not privy to the specific aspects of, so you have to learn and adapt on the job. So it's one of the reasons why I hear all the time about studios saying like it's not your specific program we're interested in, it's your general skill revolving around how you deal with those programs. So we're going to need you, because a lot of times studios have proprietary tools or engines that you have to deal with anyways. So, I mean, obviously a lot of these things are not going to be known to the public how to interact or interface with these things. So it's kind of up to you to prove that you can adapt to these new workflows or pipelines and be able to work within those restrictions or with those new software limitations. So it's important. Yeah, I agree that like in any field related to video games, it's going to be important to be able to adapt, because people are going to have different pipelines, workflows, tools, software, whatever, what have you.
Yeah. Like funny enough, the second important thing would be like being able to like just talk to people.
Yeah,
it's true. That is true.
I actually often say that like my time at a real job, almost all of that was spent learning soft skills and not really hard skills. Like I feel like I came in with enough hard skills to get by whatever I needed to know technically. It's like navigating meetings, navigating like, oh, how do I not get this person to do something, but you know, just persuade people to
work.
It's
like build those connections and like understand like who does what and like who you like I'd say I know a lot of people in Seattle indies in general, and like sometimes someone asks me, like, hey, do you know a person that'd be good for this? I'm like, maybe this guy, or like like you know enough people that like you eventually can understand like who you can make like connect, you can like build bridges between people.
Right.
It's like, oh, I know this person and this person get along really well.
Right. Yeah, networking doesn't have to be evil. It can be, it can actually be a good fundamental skill to have. And so, like, it's not just about schmoozing and putting yourself out there. It can also just be like networking in a social sense. Like you're connecting yourself into a network of people. So knowing how to navigate that social sphere is kind of important, not just because you're getting to know a lot of people, because a lot of these people are going to be the exact people who are going to help you when you need help for certain things. So it's important to make yourself not just an asset, but to know who your assets are and how to utilize them when you need them. So I mean, like, people are, you'd be surprised, I think, and I don't say this to you guys specifically, but many people would be surprised by knowing that people are actually more willing to help you than you realize, because oftentimes people like being an asset to you when they know that
People
they can
like
be
being
helpful. Yeah, they know that, they like knowing that their knowledge can be useful to other people. That's a good feeling, to know you feel like an expert to other people, to know that you can be helpful and an asset to others. That's a strong feeling for a lot of folks. As a person in the indie sphere, have you experienced that, Victor? Have people turned to you as a person to get help for VFX?
Oh, for sure.
the only
Sometimes they ask
VFX
me about
person I
things
know.
I don't know. Like
I know. If nothing else, I know Ed has pointed some people to you.
For sure. And I try to answer as best as I can, but I only know so much. So there's
That's
like,
true,
oh, how do you do
yeah.
this thing? I'm like, ooh, that's...
To a certain degree, I can tell you, but
You see this blind spot in my knowledge gap? Yeah, you see it right there.
yeah.
It's always a journey.
So, like,
Yeah, sure.
But like, networking sounds so weird. Like, I'm just like, I just make a bunch of friends, and like I realize like that inherently is networking. I'm just like, these are all people I want to hang out with, and like that is like, that's literally my motivation. Like, oh, this person's cool, I want to hang out.
Yeah, it's just making friends.
I'm like,
basically.
oh yeah, they also work in games. Yeah, but I want to hang out with them. That's my priority.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this evil thing. Not that I'm saying people think of it that way. It's just I guess I'm more saying I kind of thought of it that way because I just don't.
Yeah, it's like
it's definitely like the mindset you go into it. Because like some people like will go into it like, I need to find someone that'll get me to the place.
Right. It feels like you're using people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It doesn't have
it's like
to
you're
feel
putting
that
up
way.
this false front to get something. That's how it often feels, but it doesn't have to be that way for sure.
Right, exactly.
Like,
it doesn't have to feel fake. You can still be making friends along the way.
Right.
Yeah, like if you're a genuine person being genuine to other people, like that, like making that connection in itself is
It's worthwhile.
really helpful. It's worthwhile. Yeah.
Right. And I think especially this was kind of helpful thinking of it this way, and one of the reasons why I was willing to go to the support group events was because I knew at the time that it wasn't going to feel like networking in the traditional sense. It was mostly just going to be a bunch of people working on the things that they were working on and just kind of getting to know other folks doing the same thing. So it was like, as a person in indie game development, it was important to me to connect with other folks who were working and didn't explicitly just want something from you.
Yeah.
Like that was such an important feeling for me to try to find folks who saw things that way. It wasn't just about business. It was about making friends and about getting to know knowledge and skills that were important to developing games. It was a lot of that attitude rather than just thinking like, oh, this person just is thinking about me as a potential business asset to them in the future. And that feels kind of gross to think of it that way, and that's one of the reasons why I don't go. I often feel like I don't like going to places that are, or events that are explicitly tailored as a networking-driven event.
Yeah.
But that being said, that doesn't mean it has to be that way all the time. I know there are people out there who have already matured beyond that point where they're like, yeah, it doesn't. Just because it says networking doesn't mean you're using and abusing other people. That's just I guess what I'm trying to say is I had not matured to that point. I had thought of it as like this thing where you use and abuse other people because that's just the way the industry works, and you just have to hustle to get what you want out of the industry, and it's a harsh reality out there that you just have to get to know all the people that you're going to use. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Really, like all of the people who do it the best do it organically. They do it much more organically than you think, and it really is not this like gross thing where you're meeting other people just to use them later.
For sure. Like my first time at the social was mostly because I knew no one in the town, so I was like, I need friends.
Yeah.
Friends?
Exactly. Yeah, let's make some friends. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then it's just like you know all these people. I'm like, okay, I like hanging out with all these, but like, what if I made all these people hang out with each other?
Yeah. How would that turn out?
But
Well-
like my first major friend circle was Seattle Indies in Seattle.
That's true, because you'd kind of come into Seattle and you were already coming into Seattle with the mentality that you wanted to get into games, right? So
Yeah.
you already knew that you wanted to get a little bit, like, know some folks, get to know some people who are involved in games and the games industry, and then do VFX essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you came into Seattle with the explicit intent then to make friends in games and the games industry, including indie dev.
If I wanted to do this, then I wanted to do this wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
So just
for
like
sure.
dive right in.
Yeah. Well, as we approach the end of the hour, is there anything, Victor, that you would want to plug?
Wow, that was fast.
That was pretty fast. That was pretty fast.
And
Time
I'm
flies
not
when you're
always
having
glad.
fun.
This is true. Yeah, so much fun. I want to say that I don't remember the last time I saw your game prior to the stream, so I'm like, this is amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Like,
Well, thank you for saying so.
I mentioned it like on like Tuesday, I think. I was like, it's the polish.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I really do.
Because like I like whenever I like play the game, I tend to like part of me like zones out to like understand my placement and everyone else's
Yeah,
like
you're just
all the
like
enemies'
looking at
places.
the screen, like you don't think of the enemies as particle effects and shapes. They're just like zones of threat.
Yeah. So now I'm like I like being able to look at it and like appreciate all the little details. I'm like, yes, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That right there, that's cool.
Appreciate that. I really do. It's cool to hear. Yeah, it's grown a lot since you've been able to see it. Kind of since its inception in the initial game jam, and then as it's grown and changed, and you've been able to see it change essentially to what is now, or very close to be, its finished product. So it's nice to be able to have somebody out there who has seen it from start to finish. Actually, it's kind of cool.
And rooting for you every step of the way.
For sure. Well, I think that's going to close us out then for this live stream. Well, thank you for joining us, Victor. It's been
Thank
fun.
you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anytime.
For sure. Yeah. And obviously, we're going to hang out other times outside of this too.
Right.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Well, for all of those listening and watching, thank you for joining us. We're going to be doing this for the rest of the remaining week until Sunday, so join us for some more live streams, 5 to 6 then. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.